Hey guys, it's me, Elizabeth. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be talking about book shops, places that you can buy books. I live in an area where there are no bookshops. Quite literally, the closest bookshop to me is 30 minutes away, and there's a Mennonite bookshop. And let's just say that their selection sucks. I've been there once when I was a younger child, and the people were not nice. Also, one of them is supposedly related to my family somehow, which is weird. People weren't very nice, and their selection sucked because it's a Mennonite bookshop. Maybe more like 20 minutes away, because the next closest bookshop is actually 30 minutes away, and it's actually right next to the place that I work at. I work at a restaurant in Libri. So there's a bookshop called Anne's Books, and it's a cute little bookshop. Sometimes I go in there, it's kind of fun, but their book selection, for my personal taste, sucks. They have classics, and that's about it. That's about the only selection of books in there that I can usually find something worth buying. Occasionally I'll find random books that are interesting or that I was interested in, but their fantasy section usually doesn't have anything that actually interests me. They do have a whole token section, which is awesome, and I have bought many books from them because of that. But I don't need more token books, okay? Not right now. What I need are other fantasies that I'm actually interested in. The fantasy section, the books that are vaguely interesting are books that are the second in the series, or the third in the series, or the 13th in the series, but it's kind of nice. And they do have a lot of new books, because they're a bookshop, a small, independent bookshop, whatever. But they also have some new stuff. Usually if I go there, I'll usually end up just buying classics, because most of their other book selections are books that I'm not interested in. If you're into new books, like new releases and new that type of thing, you might enjoy that more than I would. But their shop is really cute and they have cute bookish stuff, but for my personal taste, they're just not really. And also, I can't just go there all the time. Sometimes I'll go in there before work if I go to work early, but not very often because I don't know. They don't have books that I usually like. But then the closest one to me is literally an hour outside. So not happening. The closest one to Noble is in Lancaster. I can't get there still. It's an hour away. So, what are my other options? My options for buying books in store are thrift stores and antique stores. That's where I get a lot of books, quite honestly. I don't mind buying my books thrifted. I buy my books thrifted. That's how I buy my books. I don't buy them new. Some of them are new or brand new, but at some thrift store or used place, but I don't buy brand new books. I don't usually pay full price for a book. I usually pay anywhere from $1 to maybe $10, but that's really pushing it. I don't usually pay $10 for one book. It depends on the book though. Sometimes I do. It really depends. Sometimes a book is really hard to find for less than $10 because I just did that the other day. But most of the time I try to find my books for as cheap as possible. So let's get into the places that I actually shop. Most of the places that I shop are actually on the internet. Like I said, I do go to thrift stores and antique stores, and first thing I look for is books when I go into those types of places. But again, they're thrift and antique stores, so I don't always find books. And when I do, it's always usually just random books that look really interesting and not actual books that are on my TBR. Like today, I went to a consignment shop with my sister and I was looking at the book section. And there were so many books that piqued my interest and blah blah. And I almost bought like a bunch of different books, but then I had to narrow it down because there was some other stuff I was buying. And I narrowed it down to 2 books. One of them was actually on my TBR, which is why I narrowed it down to that, because I was like so excited, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm interested in this book, already on my TBR, like this is so cool, and it's $1. So there's that. And then the other book was just a random historical fiction book that sounded really interesting, and the cover grabbed me, and I was just like, I'm just gonna keep this one. And then yeah, so my thought process is that I actually want to try and stop buying random books at thrift shops. Antique stores are a little bit different because usually when I'm buying an antique book, it's like ancient and it's probably a classic, and I only ever buy books like that usually that I recognize at least the author, and if I recognize the author, that probably means it's something I want to read. But with like thrift stores, I always just buy random books that I see that look kind of interesting, and then I have all these books on my shelf that look kind of interesting, but they're not like actual books that are on my like mental TBR or my Storygraph TBR, and so they're not actual books that I want to pick up right now, and it's just like, when am I going to ever pick these up? And I feel like I have so many books like that, and some of them I genuinely want to read, but they're not going to be like the first thing I pick up and want to read, like, I don't know. I hope that made sense, but that was a long intro. Let's just get into the actual book sites that you could buy books from, that I occasionally buy books from, or all the time buy books from. So, some of these I don't buy books from, like, ever, and actually one of these I don't know if I've ever bought a book from, but I think I may have once. But these are just some options if you're interested in these options. The first one I've bought books from in the past, but it isn't really for used books. Also, I have to mention the reason that I'm telling you all these different sites, besides the obvious option, is that I don't support Amazon, Satan's, whatever you want to call it. I don't support them, so I don't buy books from Amazon. I do buy books from Barnes & Noble's website sometimes, like when it comes to pre-orders. I cannot wait for November because there's super cool new stuff that's coming out, and I pre-ordered both books. But I do use Barnes & Noble sometimes when I can't find a book somewhere else, or when I want to pre-order something. I will definitely use Barnes & Noble for that. But I do not support Amazon. I haven't supported Amazon for years. I actually really haven't bought a single thing from them in years. Technically, me being a part of Audible is connection with Amazon, blah blah, but whatever. I don't actually use the Amazon website, and I don't purchase things. I don't use Prime. I don't use any of that. So, the book site that I use more often than I use now, it's called bookshop.org. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I actually really like this shop in the sense that all of their proceeds are going to local bookshops, which I think is the coolest thing. Do I purchase from them? Not really. I actually only really purchase from one website, which is a books like this website. But bookshop.org is definitely an option if you're interested in helping out local bookshops. Option number 2, which is one that I don't know, I think I may have purchased maybe 1 or 2 books in this shop before, if I remember correctly, but I rarely ever purchase books from this shop, if ever, because I do have the one place that I buy my books. But it's called Biblio, biblio.com. You can buy used books on here. Again, emphasis on the used. They are used books, they don't sell new books. Biblio. Like I said, I don't really use them, but they're a decent site. You can search for author, the title, the ISBN. You can search for hardcover, first edition, signed, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. You can really do, you can do an advanced search. That's pretty cool. But I don't really use Biblio because I kind of forget they exist. That's really my only excuse. And then thrift books. You probably heard of thrift books. Those are popular thrifting book sites. Probably the most popular. But I have used thrift books quite a lot before. I just don't use them that often. There's really only one site that I use, but I do use thrift books sometimes when I remember that it exists, and I'm like, oh yeah, thrift books. But I have used it quite a lot, like in the past and stuff. I honestly just keep forgetting it exists. Again, this is another thrift books. It's another thrifting books site, but they have, a lot of stuff, and it's really cool. But sometimes I will search for something and they don't have it, so it's obviously a thrift shop, so they're not gonna have necessarily everything. And the next one, second to last option that I have is Pango Books. I actually got this as an app, but you can do it on the computer. I actually didn't know that. But basically, you can sell your own books on here. You can look up books and purchase them as well. But it's really cool. I haven't sold any books on there, although I probably could because I have 2 boxes of books that I'm getting rid of. So, but basically, I have been using this kind of recently. I got the app like a while back, and I used it for like a half second, and then I forgot about it, or just didn't really care or whatever. And then recently, I remembered that I had this app, and then I was looking at stuff, and then I was buying books, and falling down that hole. So I have used it recently a little bit, but I don't use it that often. But this one is kind of more niche. It's more of like popular new release type books versus like you can't just search for anything on here. Like they have a lot of stuff. They don't just have new releases per se, but it's mostly like popular books that are well known, books that people have they're selling. Obviously, these are all coming from people who are selling them. It's not one like corporation. It's your random everyday person that's selling their books on here. So it's kind of like if you're looking for a very niche book that's like not very well known or never heard of, you're not gonna find it on Pango Books. If you're looking for a book that like if you told that title to someone, they'd be like, what is that? It's probably not gonna be on here. Maybe there are some, but not as much. It's going to be more popular reads, whether in any genre. They have classics, they have fantasy, sci-fi, all the genres, but it's going to be the more well-known books from those genres. Because I've searched for multiple things on there and they didn't have it. So you just gotta like know what you're searching for and know if they're gonna have it or not. And my most used site, the thing that I buy just about every single book that I'm not thrifting at a thrift store, is not even a book site, and that is eBay. I literally use eBay for everything. Literally, eBay is my site. I use it for everything that I can buy off of eBay. That's where I buy my stuff. eBay is like my Amazon, basically. So anytime I need to buy something, I go to eBay. And the only other site that I use just almost as often as eBay is Etsy. But I mostly use Etsy for like sewing related things and like crafty type items, projects and that type of thing. But eBay I use for literally everything that I do. Specifically books. That's probably one of the things I buy the most on here, because I buy books a lot. And yeah, eBay is my number one site for everything and anything, but my number one site for books, because literally all I do is just search for a title, and it has like thousands of options, and I just usually end up picking the one that's the cheapest. Sometimes, depending on what book it is, I want a very specific copy of the book, and so I have to like search and try to find the specific copy, because I do have issues occasionally where I buy books on eBay and they show you an image of what it's supposed to look like, and it doesn't come as that book. I've had this happen twice now. One time I bought this edition of Pride and Prejudice that was supposed to be this really cool edition that my parents have. It's like these, Folio Society, not Folio Society, I don't know what they're called, but they're at the Franklin Library, and they have like the cool gold foiling, but inside they have pictures of like portraits of some of the characters, and I loved that edition. And that's what the picture showed. It showed that edition, and I typed in that specific edition, like that's what I was searching for. And you know what came? A copy of Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility put together in one book. Excuse you? It had a red cover, but it was not the same. And then another time, I purchased, The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, because I really want to read freaking Robin Hobb. And I wanted the British edition that looks really cool, you know, with like the parchment colored background and all of that. And that's what this picture showed. But what came to my house? An ugly mass market paperback. I was so pissed. I'm like, really? And I've also bought a couple of other books that showed the image that I wanted it to be, and they came to my house an ugly mass market paperback. So now, every time I go to buy one of the books that I know will have that issue, like my fantasy book, I go and I make sure I scroll down all the way to the description to read what format the book is in. If it says mass market paperback, I'm out of there. And if it doesn't say specifically, I have to make sure that it is not a mass market. Basically, I'm trying my best to not get mass market paperbacks because I hate them like running past them. And I actually just did this recently. I just purchased the first 3 Mistborn books and the first 3 Robin Hobb books. I did repurchase the first one because I literally cannot stand mass market, and that specific edition was particularly, no, sorry, but no, it pissed me off. Anyways, and I very specifically with Mistborn, I was like scrolling forever trying to find something that wasn't mass market, because let me tell you, getting Mistborn as a non-mass market paperback is impossibly hard unless you're buying in hardcover, and I don't want the hardcover. I want the paperback that's not mass market. According to the listing, it's not mass market, and according to the picture, it is the version that's not mass market for all 3. So hopefully they come as not mass market, but we'll see when they arrive because they still haven't arrived. But yeah, eBay's my number 1. So I have 6 books coming to me at some point. But yeah, these are the 5, 6-ish options for book shopping in my specific case. If any of you have trouble getting access to bookstores, or if you like to shop online, or if you like to pay much cheaper prices and save your money instead of paying freaking $20 for one book, definitely suggest utilizing some of these options. eBay, you can get books for fairly cheap. I would say thrift books and Biblio are probably the cheapest options, if I'm being honest, because thrift books usually, like a lot of their books are $3.99 or $2.99 or $2, $3, $1 depending on the book. And it depends on what book. Like if you're buying a big book that's like already expensive normally, like extra expensive normally, it's still going to reflect that in the used edition. But specifically with eBay, they do have a lot of cheap books, but depending on what book it is, and especially if it's a popular, like, newer thing that people are into, they can be, like, a little more pricey, depending on what you're going for. I mean, in my case, when I bought Mistborn, they may have been, like, $7 and $10 and $8 or something like that. But that is because I was specifically trying not to buy the mass market paperback. If you don't care about your editions, you can get the mass market for like $3, $5, something like that. So it's really just me being picky at this point with that situation. But depending on the book, you can get it for $1, $2. Like I would say most of my books, I pay up to like maybe $3 to like maybe $7 or $8, depending on the book. And then certain books I'll pay more for, but I don't pay the normal Barnes & Noble prices or something unless, you know, I'm using Barnes & Noble for like a pre-order or something. But yeah, those are the book shops, book sites book places that I find my books at. I hope this was helpful at all. If it was, give it a like, subscribe, comment down below. Comment down below if you have any information to add to this list, if you have any more sites on the internet or any specific places that you can buy books that is very helpful that's not Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Comment down below if you have any cool bookshops or cool places to buy books in the Lancaster County area, because that's the area that I am located in, Pennsylvania. Comment down below if you have any other cool book places, whether it's a thrift store that has usually pretty good books, or another like actual bookshop or something like that, because yeah, we literally don't have any bookshops in our area, so it sucks, I know. And if you are into history, historical fashion, or sewing, check out my other channel linked below, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you have your own fun.